Imagine a Viking warrior, 1,000 years ago, standing on the vast, windswept banks of the Volga River. He's not chanting to Odin. He's not calling on Thor for strength. He is reciting verses from the Quran. His name was Ingvar the Far-Traveled, and he was one of many Norsemen who left the frozen fjords of Scandinavia and found a new faith under the burning sun of the East. This is the forgotten story of the Vikings who became Muslims, warriors, traders, and explorers, who sailed beyond the myths and into the very heart of the Islamic world. The Viking Age, as we know it, kicked off in 793 AD with the infamous raid on the monastery at Lindisfarne. For centuries, this is how history has painted them: brutal pirates who struck without warning. But this picture is incomplete. Not all Vikings sought blood. Many, many more sought gold. And the wealthiest, most dazzling cities of that era weren't in Europe. They were in the East, in the lands of the Abbasid Caliphate, the most advanced and prosperous civilization of its time. From the 9th to the 11th centuries, a group of Norsemen known as the Rus forged a new path. They sailed their longships down the great rivers of Eastern Europe, the Dnieper, the Volga, and the Don. They weren't just raiding, they were building massive trade routes that connected the cold Baltic Sea all the way to the bustling markets of Baghdad. Their ships were laden with furs, precious amber, and slaves, and they returned with something far more valuable than plunder: silver. And this wasn't just any silver. Archaeologists have unearthed hundreds of thousands of Arabic coins, known as dirhams, buried in treasure hoards across Sweden and Denmark. This is concrete proof that the legendary Viking silver didn't come from European raids, but from sophisticated trade with the Muslim world. One incredible coin, discovered near the Viking trading hub of Birka in Sweden, even carries the Arabic inscription: "There is no God but Allah." It's a whisper of a much bigger story. In the year 921 AD, that story gets even clearer. The Caliph of Baghdad sent an ambassador named Ahmad Ibn Fadlan on a long journey north. His mission was to meet the rulers of the Volga Bulgars, a Muslim kingdom near modern-day Russia, and instruct them in the finer points of Islamic law. But along the way, Ibn Fadlan encountered a people who utterly astonished him. He called them the Rusia. He wrote in his journal, "I have never seen more perfect physiques. They are as tall as date palms, blonde and ruddy." He described these Norsemen, armed with axes and swords, who controlled the vital river routes. But he was also shocked by their customs. He described their rituals as brutal and wild, even witnessing the funeral of a Viking chieftain, where a slave girl was sacrificed and burned alongside her master on his ship. Yet, even among these fierce pagan warriors, a profound change was underway. The constant trade with Muslim merchants was doing more than just filling their pockets with silver. It was transforming their world and their beliefs. By the mid-900s, the Rus' Khaganate, centered around the cities of Kiev and Novgorod, had become a dominant power in Eastern Europe. Their leaders, like Prince Oleg and Prince Igor, were savvy rulers, making deals and waging wars with both the Christian Byzantine Empire and the Muslim Caliphate. But some Vikings went even further. They didn't just trade with Muslims, they joined them. Arabic historians like Almas Udi wrote about Norse warriors who actually converted to Islam and served as elite mercenaries in the armies of the East. These men became known as the Rus al-Islam, the Muslim Rus. And this brings us back to Ingvar the Far-Traveled. According to Icelandic sagas, this Swedish explorer led a massive expedition toward the Caspian Sea around 1036 AD. The sagas say he journeyed to the land of the Saracens. This isn't just myth. Archaeological evidence, coins, inscriptions, and graves confirms a Norse presence in what is now Azerbaijan, Iran, and even as far as Baghdad. Ingvar and his men were likely seeking alliances and new trade opportunities, but for some, the journey offered something much deeper: a new faith. So why would a Viking, a believer in Odin and Valhalla, convert to Islam? There were several powerful reasons. First, trade was built on trust. Muslim merchants dominated the Silk Road, and converting to Islam opened doors, turning potential rivals into partners. Second, the discipline and unity of Islam must have been incredibly impressive to Norsemen accustomed to the constant chaos of tribal warfare. It offered a structured worldview. And third, the Islamic world was a beacon of civilization. Its advanced systems of law, its calendar, Its centers of learning and science offered a stability that Viking societies were only just beginning to develop. The evidence is literally buried in the ground. At burial sites in Sweden, like the famous Birka grave 944, archaeologists have found bodies oriented toward Mecca. They've also found incredible artifacts, like a silver ring discovered in a Viking woman's grave, intricately inscribed with the words, "For Allah." Historians still debate whether she was a practicing Muslim or simply a trader who admired the culture, but the connection is undeniable. Even our languages hold echoes of this forgotten connection. Old Norse borrowed words from Arabic through trade, like silfur for silver, and possibly words like bazaar and cotton. The common narrative we're taught is one of clash, Vikings and Muslims as polar opposites, one barbaric, the other civilized. But history reveals a much more nuanced and fascinating truth. They traded, they fought, they learned from each other, and yes, some even prayed together. In an era before modern nationalism, faith and fortune were far more powerful guides than flags or borders. By the 11th century, the legendary Varangian Guard, elite warriors who served as the personal bodyguards of the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople, was a melting pot. It included Norsemen, Anglo-Saxons, and converts from the East, all fighting side by side. These men walked between worlds. As for Ingvar the Far-Traveled, his great expedition vanished. He and his men never returned to Sweden, but they left behind a legacy carved in stone. The Ingvar Runestones, scattered across Sweden, were raised by grieving families to commemorate their loved ones who journeyed to the land of the Sörkland, the Norse name for the Muslim lands. It was one of the last great Viking adventures ever recorded. The story of the Viking who became a Muslim warrior isn't just about one man. It's about a world that was far more connected than we ever imagine. 1,000 years before globalization, Norsemen sailed their longships to Baghdad. They didn't just bring back goods. They brought back ideas, curiosity, and for some, a new understanding of God. The saga of Ingvar and the Muslim Vikings reminds us that civilizations don't only clash, they intertwine, they learn, and they grow together. From the frost of the north to the fire of the east, from Odin to Allah, from raiders to believers. The Viking world didn't just end. It evolved, carried on the winds of trade, across the rivers that joined two different worlds into one incredible human story. Thanks for watching. If you were inspired by the story of the Viking who became a Muslim warrior, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of legendary warriors.